Welcome to the March to a Million podcast with Greg DuPont, founder of the Wealth Solutions Network. In this podcast, Greg shares his journey to positively impact 1 million lives by creating an army of financially minded attorneys who embrace an expanded role in their clients' lives. Greg and his guests challenge the status quo in the legal profession and the financial services industry, and show attorneys how they can improve their lives, provide greater value to their clients, and experience greater professional satisfaction. Join us in this movement and strengthen your business by learning how to solve your clients' most pressing financial problems.
Hello and welcome to another March to a Million podcast with your host, Greg DuPont. Today, we're going to take a step back, not just topically, but also reflecting on what Greg and I have just recently done. We both took some time. And we are very hard-charging entrepreneurs, as I'm sure you've noticed from this podcast before. And both of us just took time off recently, and we're going to talk about the reason why it's so important to do that, and also a little bit about what we might have learned during that sabbatical and that break. So, Greg, welcome to the show.
Hey, Matt, good to see you again. You look refreshed from your visits and travels and all that good stuff.
Yeah, you look sun-kissed too, my friend. So that's nice. In fact, when I got back, my team was like, "Oh God, Matt's going to be on fire." And to be really honest, I really have been. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So what did you end up doing?
So my wife and daughter and son-in-law to be, we went on a 9-night cruise. What I call the Mediterranean Sea, but I was corrected. That's actually the Tyrian Sea.
Okay.
Spent a couple nights in Rome before that, and a night in Barcelona on the way back. So I had essentially, between travel and time there, a solid 2-week vacation, which is first time in many, many years. So I think it was actually since 1990 that I took that big of a chunk of time.
It's 30 years, dude.
Yeah. Maybe it's 95, but you know the number, right? It doesn't, whenever that was, to take 2 years and, or 2 years, 2 months, strike that. How about 2 weeks? I'll work toward 2 months, let alone 2 years of vacation. But maybe I am setting a commitment that I'm going to do.
I don't know. Hey, we got it on tape now, dude. You're going to have to do that. So let me ask you the question that I got asked a lot when I was taking my time, which was how long did it take for you to really get in vacation mode?
Well, when you're traveling internationally, I'm not sure if, there's any more immersive experience than that 24 hours of travel to get to your destination in Europe that triggers you. You're different, right? Especially when you fly overnight, you get there in the morning and now you're off and running. So it happened instantaneously for me.
Wow.
Exhaustion and all that stuff. Now ask me how long it took me to get back into productive mode once I came back, and that's another story altogether.
Well, we're going to get to that in a minute, dude. You're leading me a little. You're leading the witness a little far here. All right, so you unplugged. What sort of stuff did you do that you don't normally get to do that made you feel recharged?
I'll answer that a little differently, because I never give you good guidance for my conversation here. I just give you these talking points. So in the past, I've learned to unplug fairly significantly from my office, and the need to do that. And I've trained my team over the years that when I go, I am not available, period. Very few ways to get hold of me. And that's one of the reasons why I love cruising, because it's in the past, it was not possible. And now it's just not realistic to do that, and the cost wise and all that stuff. So, when I came into 2024, I knew that we had this trip on the books, and I used that as a goal, a marker to basically be able to spend essentially 4 weeks being worthless throughout the month of June and into July. And I use that as a planning point to be able to move everything forward this year, because I knew that I was essentially going to be not producing like I typically do for a whole month. And in the backdrop of this, we got WSN growing and the law firm growing, all that stuff, and trying to figure out, okay, I'm needed more than ever right now. This is what I was looking at it in January. How can I be worthless for the month of June?
Mhm.
And that became the central organizing vehicle for the way that the first half of the year went, so that I could take the month of June and the operations for a month essentially went on without me, and we came to the other side without stress into July.
Well, so do we want to talk a little bit about that on what you did to prepare your team and the expectations and for your clients and your business in order for you to be worthless for a month?
So I'm going to tie that back into the evolution, of where I am now, where I will be in a year and a half, 2 years, and where I was 3 years ago. And much of it I attribute to the teachings of Dan Sullivan and the training that I have through my experience there with Strategic Coach. When we sat down for the first session of the program, they challenge you in different ways. The one thing that they challenged right off the rip was, what they call their life extender. And that is challenging when you say, I'm going to live to 85 or whatever, and to start thinking about, okay, what's that look like? And if you're healthy at that point in time, how much more will you really have, most likely? And giving you a different perspective on things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I started that, I had my March and all that stuff chronicled out and what I wanted to do. And instead of it saying, okay, at 65, I might be done with my March. When I was done with that, it's like, okay, wow, what next? And that sets a perspective that then they go into their entrepreneurial time management system, where they challenge you to set up your calendar and your life and work style a year ahead, actually, to have an appropriate number of what they call free days, focus days, and buffer days.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and each year adding more freedom of time and setting those as goals. And when you're talking to Dan Sullivan, you're talking to a guy that's coached a gazillion entrepreneurs like you and I. And with the first day of the program, they're telling you work less.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you start thinking about that, when I come around to January of 24, going, okay, what do I need to do to be worth less, work less, have more freedom of time, and all that throughout that month? That's when the decisions were made that, okay, I need to put these new who's, again, to use Dan's vernacular, who, not how, these new people in place, these new tools in place to be able to run everything while I'm not around, and challenge my team to continue to expand themselves. And it's been amazing what has happened in the law practice since I've been able to pull back. And this is the message that I want to share with members of WSN. Since I have been able to pull back from my role as an active producer in the law practice and focus more on the higher level management and focusing on the strategies and all that, they've taken over. And so while I was gone from the practice of law in the month of June, they had by far the biggest revenue month ever in our estate planning practice.
All right.
And I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. How does
And
that
that's
make you feel though, dude? I mean, is that like empowering? Is that depressing? Is that exciting? What is that?
it's exciting and empowering,
Yeah.
and reaffirming is that, with my legal mastermind group, we deal with this a lot, and the self vision that people are coming for me and only me. And when you get yourself trapped in that loop that I got to be the one that does it, you can never break out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I see my team using the tools that we have created and the tools that the rest of the team have improved upon, I set the foundation, I set the course, I set the vision, but they implement and improve because I'm only one brain. It's like I always tell people in WSN, hey, I got this great idea here. And I know I can improve your life by you becoming part of my team and my mission, but I want feedback. I want you to participate in us making this better because I've only got the one brain, only my experience.
Yeah.
And so when we look at that next step that of WSN, which is what I'm doing now this summer, is WSN 2.0. Mm-hmm. What's that next vision look like? Realizing that a couple of problems out of WSN 1.0 is I misjudged how much work it would be for people to follow in my footsteps and do what I have done and get the licensing and start learning this stuff that to me is secondhand. So that's one thing that I miscalculated on, and we're fixing that with WSN 2.0. And the other part is how much that was reliant upon me going forward. And part of my vision plan was that I'd get out of the way, but right now I've got to go on to 2.0, which figures out how do we do this so that next year Greg can take 2 months off,
Sure.
Right? And not have the membership of WSN miss a beat, just like the law practice didn't miss a beat when I disappeared for a month.
So you talk about the free days, focus days, buffer days. For the audience who doesn't know that terminology, would you mind explaining what those three categorizations of calendaring is?
Yeah, as Dan talks about, first of all, a free day is a 24-hour block. Each of these are 24-hour blocks. A free day is a 24-hour block of time when you don't think about the business. You don't purposely, you don't read necessarily about the business, but you just don't spend time buying them, let alone actively working the business, right? So that's what a free day is in his plan. And the focus day is your money producing day. That is, you're focusing on your three highest revenue producing activities during those 3 days, or for me, 3 days. And then the buffer days are days when you kind of clean up messes and be prepared so that you can have more focus on a focus day. And so, I'm in my group, my cohort with, 30 odd entrepreneurs, and each of us are in different phases of the journey trying to get there. And with that, what I have seen as I come into the end of my third year now in that program, I'm having more free days, more intentional focus days, and more productive buffer days by using that type of focus to be able to do that. And he contends over, and I'm experiencing that the more free days you have, the more time you have to flush your body and your brain of deliberate business thinking, the more creative you are. And so we circle back to my experience over the last month. In the past, I would disconnect from the business, from the operation of the business when I was on vacation. But I was talking to my coach before that, and she challenged me to become intentional this time, to change my pattern, because always on these cruises, I would spend a lot of time, reading business stuff, getting ideas, brainstorming, quote unquote, thinking about the business, thinking I was clear of any distraction. She challenged me to spend this time and not do that. And by and large, I'm happy to report that I spent 2 weeks not thinking about business at all. And now coming back the other side, I've got new ideas, new insight, new energy that is all I can attribute that to really unplugging for the first time.
Sure. So the solo firms that are part of WSN that might not have the ability uh, to take that amount of time, what do you say to that?
This is the promise of WSN, because why do you not have enough time? Because you're trying to make a living, right? You're trying to figure out, how do I have the lifestyle that I want to have? It's an old exercise in the practice of law. When you figure out, okay, how much do I want to make? So I can figure out my billable hours. What's my target, right? Well, what do? They start with thousands of hours, right? That this is how many hours I need to work to make my nut that I want to shoot for. If you follow the logic of what Sullivan has, sets forth, and again, it works for entrepreneur after entrepreneur after entrepreneur. Instead of saying, okay, I've got a 5-day work week, I got 3 days that are going to be my focus days. And I'm going to do that. I'm not going to do that 52 weeks out of the year. I'm going to do that maybe 40 weeks out of the year, which is my thinking. And it's like, okay, now to make what I want to make, I have 3 8-hour days, so 24 hours a week, right? How do I do that? And when you do that, you say, okay, well, I still want to make $1 million in my firm. How can I do that? Well, I can't do that necessarily by charging $2,000 an hour as a lawyer. But are there other ways that I can generate that kind of revenue? Is it by building out a team like I have, where, okay, for every hour I've got, they've got their time being put in and they're multiplying my effort? Or is it, as WSN uses as its central tenant, how can I get more revenue per client? How can I provide more value to my clients that I'm already seeing? As I said from the get-go, 1 out of every 10, if you are properly presenting the opportunity to them throughout the context of an estate planning engagement, 1 out of every 10 will say, yeah, I would like to have A, B, C, D, or E, whatever that solution is that comes from knowing the augmented solutions that we've got. So this is the pathway for a solo attorney to figure a path forward to receive more revenue per client. Maybe they take it from the perspective of, okay, I got 3 focus days a week. How am I going to do that? Instead of, I was talking to a new member the other day that basically says, I'm working 7 days a week. I'm making $1 million in revenue this year, but I'm working 7 days a week. I, on the other hand, now look at it from the other side, right? I took a month off. I plan on taking a lot more time off, and that is going to allow me to continue to be energized, thinking of new paths forward, new ways I can serve not only my client base, but my friends and members of WSN, because there are lots of tools that come out of the ether when you start having freedom of time to think about it.
All right. What should I have asked you about all of this that I didn't?
Do you regret not knowing it earlier?
Well, I think we know the answer to that, but it's a wonderful question. Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially the one that you were just talking about, is working 7 days a week, and yeah, they're making money hand over fist, but can they spend it? Do they have any time to enjoy the fruits of their labor? And so I'm assuming your answer to that is, boy, I wish I would have done this earlier.
Yeah, but you have to go through your own trials and tribulations, right? You need to get to the other side of it. And I've been trying to increase my number of free days since I started Sullivan's program, being intentional about it. And it's tough. It's really tough. But when I was thinking about our conversation today, and I looked back over the last 2 years and I was able to say, okay, wow, I've come a long way. Being able to say, okay, I now have essentially a month where I was worthless. And it makes you appreciate it more. And the journey that you go through to become intentional about this and be more deliberate about your time, it gives you the strength. And this is why this is all part of the first day of Strategic Coach. To now say, okay, I'm not getting exhausted running toward the finish line of retirement. I'm getting myself to a point where I can work 100 days a year, have a great lifestyle, financially great lifestyle, through my freedom of time and place and relationships, that you truly appreciate more once you've gone through the transition, and give yourself some space to look back and say, wow, I've learned a lot.
Well, my friend, I'm glad that you had the time to refresh and recharge, so that WSN 2.0 really has a lot of the issues that had come up with just happens with business. You don't know what you don't know until you got lots of people going through it. And so we got the second half of this year, which is going to be even stronger than the first half of this year. And I am assuming that for any of you who are listening to this at any point in your WSN journey, that this will give you some really good perspective on where you should go, what you should be striving towards, and what WSN can be able to do for you. Any closing thoughts?
Well, as part of WSN 2.0, one of the lessons learned of 1.0 was the lack of time to actually attend our trainings and fit that in. So with this podcast, we are announcing we now have the 6-pillar presentation. We now have an ebook based upon that, that by clicking the link in the show notes, anybody who's listening to this podcast can get access to the 6-pillar program. That are 6 different pathways to adding 6 figures to your bottom line.
Ooh, that's even catchy. I like that. Well done, sir. Well done. Well, listen, if you know of another attorney who really does want to do exactly what Greg was just saying, please make sure that you introduce them to WSN by going to joinwsn.com, and also make sure that you take some time to review the previous podcast, because lots of really wonderful nuggets in there to continue your journey to truly help us with our march to $1 million. All right, Greg, thanks for being on the show today, brother.
Thank you, Matt. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the March to $1 Million podcast. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available, and get in touch with our team by visiting our website at www.wealthsolutionsgroup.biz, or give us a call at 614-432-8065. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Wealth Solutions Network. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice from qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have.